based in Norway, Phoebe, isn't that right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm in Norway, yeah.
Nice. How's it going over
In
there?
Tromsø, correct?
Yeah, in Tromsø. But at the moment, I'm in Oslo, just visiting a friend. But
Okay.
yeah, so yeah, I have some questions about the film. So, how was it working with the director?
Um, for myself, it was. It turns out that we were very like-minded, had very similar. It was really easy actually because we had very similar references, frame of reference for the films and stuff. We were very similar tastes. Like we're both quite into horror and different things like that. But even for shots, there was a bit of a shorthand that I found really useful because we were kind of going into these things and it was sort of like it was really funny. He was sort of like this is the Skyfall moment, you know, whenever Daniel Craig steps into for the framing and for different things like that, and that kind of it was really funny because it was sort of if we didn't have that connection, it could have been quite difficult to explain that. I suppose trying to look up the different kind of shots he was trying to get at or kind of things he was referencing, and it was actually really easy. It was it was probably the best experience I've had working on any of my films. In all honesty, yeah, absolutely, definitely was. Because that's why we love to work together again and stuff. It was really good because he just sort of built that trust from the offset, and which meant I was very comfortable to jump in a canal and different things like that. And yeah, sort of trusting your director is probably the most important, um, or one of the most important parts of making film, I think, for sure.
Nice. So, what was jumping in the canal the most challenging shot that you've done in the film, or was it the other ones?
Um, I wouldn't say it was the most challenging. It was actually, I was surprised, well, not surprised, but everyone was so considerate and so like, God, I've never had that where they're so concerned about the well-being of the actor, which is wonderful. And I was like, no, it's fine, it's fine. They're like, no, it may not be safe. We need to make sure it's safe. It's like, I'll go in, it's all good. And it was really funny. And even we had help, like a health kind of one of the actors as well, but he was sort of trained in what am I forgetting, first aid and stuff like that. So like there was someone ready to sort of in case because it was December, wasn't it? Am I correct, Victor? Or November?
All right.
October, sorry. Okay, so it was very, very cold. It's cold.
Not throwing you into December.
December, okay. Okay.
I wouldn't, but Mom wouldn't have.
So that's me exaggerating a little bit. But it was very cold. Ireland's always been cold. No, more for me, it was probably, in all honesty, it was probably tapping into that anxiety and those kind of aspects of the character that I don't naturally sort of, or that level of, like the panic and those kind of things. It was more getting into that kind of, and that came across as true in a way, because it is a comedy, but it was sort of, it was, you don't want, it's not making fun of people with those kind of, because it should be kind of universal. People, the way I kind of approached it was people with different anxieties that can be critical in all kind of aspects, and you want to hit that, and there is comedy within that, but it's also getting it to come across as true, and that's kind of where working with Tom came in really useful, because I was sort of like, I needed him to steer to make sure that I was on the right track. There were lots of moments where he was sort of like, right, bigger, we'll go, and I was sort of like, but is this true in this? And luckily, watching the film, I think it came across. I think he did make the right decisions with regards to that. But it's just trusting him. And yeah, I did trust him. So it was good.
Okay, so how long did it take for you to prepare for a specific scene to be anxious? Do you have to think about your past traumas, like before the scene, or how do you prepare for a scene like that?
It was more in the research. It's more like sort of looking at people with those kind of conditions, and then it was sort of there was a little bit of it's a little bit of sort of I wasn't really, I don't know if Victor noticed, but it was sort of before those scenes. It's sort of like it is sort of about being by yourself, or like kind of by yourself and kind of working that up and kind of getting that. And it is kind of funny. It's hard to sort of, you're trying to be polite if people are around, but you don't want to kind of lose that in the moment. So it was kind of getting that kind of just what kind of things would make you. It was just, yeah, I was trying to just get into that perspective of it and really capture how the fears were making up. And it was a funny one, but it was sort of those kind of scenes. It was very much kind of just ignoring that space and walking around and get into it, sort of like amp yourself up and sort of, look, jogging around there and sort of just that kind of thing, like a maniac, really. But just getting that kind of, but I felt like on the set they were very respectful of giving that kind of space before those scenes. I feel like people were kind of aware of what it was, what we were doing next scene. So yeah, it worked out well.
Yeah. Are you trained as a theater director, and do you use method acting or anything like specific acting techniques that you studied or researched?
There's a little. I studied act. So I studied a little bit at the Gaiety in Dublin. I'm not really all my experience is screen. And then I studied at Bow Street in Dublin as well. So that's screen acting school. So specifically sort of watching backlog tapes and kind of tweaking that kind of stuff. And it's Jerry Grinnell's method that I would have used mainly, which is, I suppose you could say, a little bit of a modern amalgamation of previous techniques like Stanislavski and Meisner, and I've done a little. Meisner's one I've kind of delved into a bit as well, possibly after the film. So I'm very interested in touching bases on all those kind of things. But my opinion, or the way I kind of approach it, is expose yourself to as many of those techniques and try it, but pick the gems that work for you. So I don't. For me, I don't like the idea really of like, this is the one way to do it. And I think each project kind of dictate what way you go about it. And the problem with method would maybe can sometimes be you don't want to be considerate of. You also don't want to make it uncomfortable for other people. And it's trying to find that balance. But there is a little bit of that method, where you're kind of trying to create the scenario in your head. But it's I'm very aware. You always hear the stories of people, obviously the results are there sometimes, but it's like the worry is to adopt that approach and not to kind of just be like, oh, it was just, a bit of a, I'm not going to say the word, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. So it's a little bit of an amalgamation of various ones, but Jerry would be the one that I kind of most exposed to.
Okay, cool. Was there a reason why there was Irish chefs pushing you into the water? What was this idea from the producer or a director? Like, how did you come up with the idea of the whole film? Was it from Victor's choosing? Did you find the director at a film festival? How did you choose the director with the script?
I actually met the writer, Damien Ryan, at a funeral. So it was a happy occasion in a very dark setting. No, the funeral wasn't a tragic one. A man who had lived a great life. I think it was natural end. And his mum knew my mum from from years ago. I think my mum knew his dad more, but she came up to me and said, your mother tells me you're a producer. My son's a writer. Would you like to meet him? And of course, I said yes, because you never know how these things would end up. So I meet this guy, Damien, and he's a very eccentric, very likable guy with the same humor I do, and Abe too, actually. I think, very, 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 very eccentric man. Like myself, by the way. I'm behaving well now, and he said, I've just finished a short film, and I said, what's it about? He said, it's about a guy who's afraid to leave his apartment because of fear of people. And I just said to him, oh, please send it to me. And I read it, and it was exactly what I hoped it would be. In other words, it was a kind of a quirky, I know that word is overused, but a very quirky concept that was much more than what the tagline was. The whole we don't stretch the joke of the fact that he's afraid of beards throughout the film, even though it's as Abe said, it's not even actually a joke. Actually, we do show his actual struggle with it. Some instances we make much more humorous than I think the average person with ponogophobia has, but that's why the film's a comedy. And it's a kind of film I imagine, when you're sitting in a film festival and you're watching 10, 15 short films one after the other. Most of which I find are quite serious. There's a lot of drama short films that get accepted into festivals. Comedy seems to be a bit neglected, I don't know why. But it's always quite a nice, refreshing break when you get comedy in between all of these darker pieces. And in reading it, I just thought, okay, well, I think audiences would like it. I immediately like it. And so I didn't actually need any more than that, and I just didn't overthink it. So I spoke with Thomas Ryan, who's the director, who directed a feature called Twice Shy that saw theatrical release here in the UK very well. And I met him a few years before. Always wanted to work with him. Just found him a nice guy, if nothing. I mean, obviously he was a very acclaimed director, but I also quite liked him as a person. So I just thought this was someone who I would like, work with. And I sent him the script, and he was very happy to have been sent it, and he was itchy to get on board, and that was it. Long story short, that scene of the canal was in the script.
Oh, okay.
Long story short, so that was the writer's conception.
Okay.
But fun fact: the guy with the paddy cap, who pulls out the air horn, he was actually cast on the day. He actually was there as Abe mentioned, Luke Corcoran, who was there with his girlfriend Eve. They were there as medics. And I said, I still need another lad to push him into the canal. And Luke says, I can do it. And I said, oh, are you an actor? He goes, yeah. I went, oh, okay, great. And then he was one of the lads, and he was great. And especially the line where he's just cycling away and he yells, you fucking prick.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. I really love that scene. I love the choreography, the turning. But yeah, no, including the other actor, he was cast on the day as well. So we were very fortunate to have those people. So,
yeah, and the red lighting as well is a good choice of location and everything.
Oh, thank you.
Scene.
Yeah, it's a very popular spot in the Grand Canal Dock, yeah.
Oh, okay, nice. So, how does where you live influence how and what you make? Do you think Dublin has any effect on your work and process?
It's for me or Abe?
Both. However you want to. Yeah.
You want to take that, Abe?
How does Dublin?
You're all over the place.
Well, yes, I'm all over the place. I'm living in London, but now I'm stuck. Not there's anything wrong with being stuck in Belfast, but yeah, back in Belfast now.
Nice.
But anyway, yes. So, well, I suppose in one way it did, because I'm from Northern Ireland. Ireland is obviously a different country, different place. So because I was keeping the accent and I was moving down, I was in my apartment, or he was in his apartment. The way I kind of approached it was maybe he had studied. He could have maybe in Belfast, then he came down, he was working there, and then these kind of things could have all built from the fact that he was by himself, and because he was removed from the book, he was kind of allowing this to kind of fester and go unchecked, almost. And, so I think being by himself was definitely part of how this kind of, I would say, snowballed or escalated and kind of went that direction, kind of how if he was living with this or this kind of thing, like he may have not been allowed for this to happen, but I think actually being there, it definitely was a big part of that. So that's probably the way I would say it, because obviously I was an accent. I think that was how I was kind of approaching it, that being by himself, this was the reason, was a big part of how I was allowed to go this far. That's what I would think. So.
Okay. So compared to the projects in Dublin and London, do you have to have a London accent in those projects, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, mostly. I mean, sort of generic base, of course, would be of your standard kind of or English or neutral English, and then general American and stuff like that. You know, it's just kind of the sort of basic sort of step. Like, if you're going to do, like, because so many productions they're global, but they're getting, which is nice. There's a nice thing that's kind of happening in cinema now, where they're definitely more accepting of other accents and kind of trying to get that representation across, which is great. And it makes it a little bit more interesting to sort of hear lots of different. But a lot of the time, so say you go for casting, you'd be like, okay, so do you take in American and then do your own accent as an option, so they can kind of see, which is quite nice. But it is like those are the two kind of basic ones for us anyway, that we kind of, so many castings, it's always English and American. Northern Irish is getting a little bit more popular in TV, especially up normal people and stuff like that, which they'll have one character from Northern Ireland. But it is becoming more mainstream, but for a while people wouldn't have understood us, I would say.
Yeah, that's cool. So what makes a strong collaboration?
Well,
that's a good one.
What
do
you want to go first?
I don't know. No, because again, it may just seem like I'm saying this because we're promoting Ponogophobia, but our one of the crew members, who's very experienced sound recordist, Chris Carroll, is actually a sound recordist on Normal People. He said that he's normally quite a quiet person on set, so he normally hangs back, and people can come up to him and just chat to him. And he finds that sometimes, he's the person that everyone else bitches about other crew members to. And he made a point in saying that did not happen once during the filming of Ponogophobia, which was nice to hear. And I don't know why that was. You had talented people, but I think perhaps it was, I'm going to say, lack of ego, and also it was very well managed. No one was given more preference beyond what was necessary. Oftentimes on projects, because the DOP knows things we don't, they're treated like gods. They, take advantage of that, as anyone would. Or if you have an actor that's quite famous and knows that the production, are very privileged to have him or her, they would act upon that. In this case, no, and that didn't happen. Our DOP, Donald Cavan, again, just a lovely guy, as well as being talented, and that's a very lucky combination to have. You shouldn't expect that, and if you do, you're naive. You shouldn't be in the business, but it's very hard to go back on it once you've had it. I'm certainly going to try and stick to this crew going forward. Maybe this was a fluke. I don't know, but I'm certainly I'm certainly going to get these guys first.
Nice. So what film festivals have you applied this film on? Did you get into any yet?
Yes, did. We premiered in the Toronto Comedy Feedback Festival
nice.
In which we won Best Cinematography. We've also been in the Kerry International Film Festival here in Ireland, the Offline Film Festival in Ireland as well as the Waterford Film Festival. We have been shortlisted for nominations for the Gold Movie Awards in London, to take place in August. Abe was nominated for Best Actor, Thomas was nominated for Best Director.
Nice.
We won an award from the Global Shorts competition for, we were given an award of excellence. And the latest one we were accepted to that I'm very excited about is the LA Comedy Fest, the 20th LA Comedy Fest. They haven't given us a date for that yet, but that'll be our United States premiere. Because Canada was in North America. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Not
what's
more to go.
your next project then that you're gonna produce?
Mine, I have another short film out that's doing the festival round called Stacey's Place, about this woman who's struggling with alcoholism and an abusive ex-boyfriend. And I'm also developing a project for Screen Ireland, which is the main government funding body here in Ireland, which is the project is a Cold War satire. So that's what I'm working on.
Awesome, that's cool. So, do you think the film business is fair?
No, it's not fair, and I mean, it's an expansive question. The short answer is no.
Yeah, no one thinks it's fair because everyone's underpaid, and there's so many issues.
Well, yeah, no, that's an inequity that should be tackled. That's something that no industry can justify. But there's many other aspects that are just go hand in hand with film. Nepotism, huge one. It's just part of it. I mean, it doesn't make it fair. But then again, people are weeded out if they're not of use to anybody. So, I mean, you do get your foot in the door if you know somebody, but I think, luckily for the most part, unless somebody really is backed by someone powerful, they're not going to be, hired again and again. That's my experience. I don't know how you feel, Abe. I mean, you're an actor, you see rejection so much. Not because of you, because of being an actor.
It's just part of the game. Yeah, I would say no. But I do agree. I agree with all the things you said, Victor. Luckily, there is definitely something of you hear about people that are awkward or treat people badly or whatever, and there's definitely some form of at some point it catches up with them where it gets across, and at least it's something nice. Because I've worked with people where you sort of see them going off, and you're just like. It's completely different. There's no way that you should be talking that way, or you've got your egos just through the roof, whatever it is. But there is a thing where, at least, because there is so much word of mouth. Like the more you work, it kind of seems to generate more work. Obviously, provided there's an etiquette, and it's like just treat everyone with respect, and like everyone is there. It's an industry where. I've came across some, and I don't really understand it. It's like such a hard industry to get into, and in my opinion, you have to be so passionate about it to try it because it's not a secure, easy gig. Like, yes, of course, whenever you get to a certain point, it can get very glamorous or whatever, but to get there, you really have to have drive, and I don't understand why they're not passionate about it. So then everyone should have that similar level of passion. So just have fun, and you're there making movies. It's fun, but there are people that you do hear of word of mouth kind of events you go to school. Because a lot of the things with auditions is there's a big part of where both, and this where I think this was whenever I met with Victor and Tom for the casting, it was like we were talking, we shared interests, and it's a lot of it is we're going to work together, and I want to see you every day for the next X amount of time, and. Like as well as like having the character and being the right person for it, it's like you don't especially people who put their money in and stuff like that. It's like you don't want to have someone that's just ruining the experience and it's miserable. So there's a lot of that. But so there's elements of fairness coming into it, I think, but I think there's a lot of work there.
Well, interestingly, Abe was actually at a disadvantage compared to the other people that were auditioning for the role.
Why?
It was my fault because I forgot simply to email him is the audition piece. All he received, I think, was a character sheet. Did you receive a synopsis?
There was a no, I didn't get a synopsis. I got the title and 2 character briefs. So I had sort of looked at this and I was like, okay, this is really strange, but it was just like, but it sounds really interesting. I was really looking for something different to play, and I was just like, okay, I've got nothing to like. It's interesting. It sounded like interesting characters, and then I kind of wrote like briefs. Like I wasn't sure. Maybe there wasn't a script. Maybe we were going to talk about potential. I don't know. But I kind of just went frantically through and kind of came up with. I don't even know if it was. Maybe it was a synopsis and not character briefs. I don't know. But either way, I kind of wrote. I was like, oh, so maybe we could explore this with this character and all this stuff. And they're like, that's kind of what we're doing. And I figured out the character by just spitballing it in a diary, and I came in with like 2 or 3 pages of notes for each. Because there were 2 characters written there, and I went in Cyril, and then I think it was Delivery Man was written there, because they were trying to cast both, and it's like, why not? And but I just came in with these piles of notes of kind of what we could explore with it, and there was a lot of it was kind of touching on where they were going with it, and it was just really funny because it was just the weirdest thing, because I just hadn't got it, but I don't know whether I was tired or something, and I just didn't get in contact and be like, where are the sides? I thought maybe it was like a meeting and we were just going to discuss character and they were going to enlighten me and chat back and forth. It was a really funny one, but it was funny because I kind of somewhat bought the character without actually having the script or anything. It was a really weird one. What worked out?
It was bad because I remember you took from your diary. You said, I think Cyril, he's frightened of beards because he read something somewhere about beards." And I said to Abe, well, in the script, Cyril has a line saying, "I've read somewhere they're dirtier than toilet seats." So, I mean, work you put in it. I know, man. Thomas was so excited that day after you left. I think we saw one other person after you, and I mean, we gave the person, I think, a fair shot, but we were just like, yeah, okay, we're just going to, unless this guy completely blows us away, we're going to go with Abe. So it was amazing, and Abe was, I think, you were the second last we auditioned for Zero, so yeah.
So you did the casting as well, right? Did you have a casting director?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it was myself and Thomas just discussing what he wanted from the characters, and I would just contact various agencies and arrange as such. No, it was a very, very small production, so no casting agent or director or anything like that. So. Yeah.
Which agencies did you contact?
There's, I can't remember them now. There's Lisa Richards, which would probably be the biggest one here in Ireland, and then there's off the top of my head, I actually really can't remember the other ones. The biggest one definitely is Lisa Richards, and I did contact Bow Street, which is the school that Abe was trained in, and they also sent me some options. Cassinets was another one, and it's very terrible, but a lot of agencies are named after people, and I'm terrible with names. That's why. If they're named after objects or expressions, I would know them.
Okay, that's cool. And what's your favorite character to play, type of character in a film that you would choose in a story? Is it the villain or the hero? Like, which one do you enjoy playing the most?
Depends on the character, but it is fun to play the villain. It's very fun. There's something really fun about, I don't know what that says about me, but there's a certain part, it must be somewhere in my personality, that I think there's something that's really fun about being given license to explore side of yourself, explore daily life. And sometimes, you look at The Dark Knight and you're like, the Joker's the one that where you're getting to let loose, and it's kind of, you can kind of almost be as big and you can kind of explore these things. Whereas, like, if you're the hero, it's, you're getting people to sympathize with you, and there is that kind of, it can be very interesting, but typically, for some reason, it's kind of fun to be a bit of an asshole sometimes. There's something fun about just being like, okay, this guy, he is a dick. And you're like, okay, we'll find layers within that, but it's like, but also there's something really fun about just being given that advice, or that kind of, given that permission to you, especially if it's, I like to think I'm not a villain, and not well, not it's someone that would be not cruel, but like even like just dang it, there's something really fun about being allowed to just do that, and it's so different, and it's maybe sometimes maybe you wish you could be a little bit more of that in real life. Sometimes with certain people they're not very nice, and so there's something quite exciting about that, and I find that's actually quite something that's kind of where where the ideas kind of really flow, and you can kind of just get that there's something really fun about it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's true. Cool. And also, do you think the director and producer or the first AD play, there's a sort of power game on set that you feel that goes on a set? Like, what's your experience with that?
I've been very lucky where I haven't really felt that, and that's kind of, I think, that's probably where the sets that I would have best. That's kind of ones that you want to live for, in my opinion, where people have. I suppose people know their role in the director. Like I suppose it would be. They need to have that clear definition of what the directors where they're coming and talking with the character and different things. And I suppose if you're getting conflicting, if other people are, or at least maybe they go to the director and they all kind of decide, and then comes the actor, and kind of, you don't want to get direction from too many places or because it can just confuse the character, and then you don't know what you're doing. And then if it's conflicting, that is, but everyone, you don't want to feel any kind of levels on that. Like everyone should be, no matter what part they play, no matter what they're doing, the song, whatever it is, they should all be, we're all peers, and it's about having that respect. But it is, of course, about knowing what their role is within that. But the best experiences are whenever because everyone's just no one's better than anyone, of course. Like, there's no. I luckily haven't had any experiences like that, which is good.
Good. Yeah. No,
especially not in this one.
Okay.
Just saying here, there's about 5 minutes left.
Yeah. Do you want to say something that could promote this film further? Yeah, you could.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think our next festival that's due to take place is the Rich Paris Film Festival here in Ireland. I don't give it to that yet. And then, like I said, if you follow us on our social media pages, Constant Motion Pictures is the name of the company. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and the old Instagram.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely follow you guys. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
For sure.
Yeah. And that's all great. I really appreciate you chatting to us, Phoebe.
Yeah,
nice.
I enjoyed our conversations. Yeah, I'll maybe send some scripts to Abe when we're ready with the science fiction short film in Norway. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey,
yeah.
Fantastic. Brilliant.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. All right.
Got some good villains lined up.
Yeah. I think so, yeah. All right.
Well, look, guys, have a great weekend. Good seeing you, Abe. Thank you again.
Yeah.
Stay safe.
Yeah, stay safe.
And
yes.
Okay.
I forgot for a second what was going on in the world, but yes.
All right. Okay, have a good weekend.
Take care.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
take care.
Lovely speaking. All right.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.